Hey folks, so I've decided in the last couple of days the question I seem to be getting more and more often is where do you get your wood from? So I thought I would do a short video on this and go into some detail about where I get my wood and how you might be able to source wood in your area. Also offer you some suggestions on how to talk with people at different lumber yards because they use some terminology that you might not be familiar with if you've really only purchased lumber at places like Lowe's or Home Depot. So when I talk about a genuine lumber yard, I'm really not talking about those places at all. What I'm talking about is a place that sells traditional hardwoods. Most likely these will be people who supply hardwood to cabinet makers and things like that. You can search for, hardwood lumber yards in your area on Google. I would also search for cabinet makers because they may be able to tell you a source that is kind of off the beaten path. So the first thing to keep in mind when you're going into a genuine lumber yard as opposed to a Lowe's or Home Depot, they describe the boards a little bit differently. Let me show you what I mean. So there's a couple of things to know when you're dealing with a lumber yard, a genuine lumber yard. And one of the first things is that they tend to measure everything in terms of board feet, which is a very different way of looking at things than you're probably used to. You're thinking a 3-foot long board is 3 feet. Well, in their terminology, it's a little bit different. I'll give you an example. For example, this piece of maple is 1 foot by 1 foot and 2 inches thick. This would actually be considered 2 board feet of lumber because it's 2 inches thick. The same way, let's take this piece of Choctavita. This is about 2 feet long, 6 inches wide, and 1 inch thick. And this is actually considered to be 1 board foot because it's only half that width, right? So you're looking more at a cubic dimension than a complete length dimension when they start talking about that. There are a couple of calculators for phones that'll calculate board feet for you, and I'll put the links down there. But it's good to get used to seeing things in board feet. Now, most of the places that I get stuff from will go ahead and put the price on the edge of the board if they're just selling individual boards. But if they've got a large pallet full of boards, you're generally going to see, a price per board foot on them and not individually priced boards. Okay, so if the whole board foot thing wasn't enough to break your brain, this is going to be even a little bit weirder. When they refer to board sizes, they refer to the thickness in terms of 1/4 inch. So you don't refer to a 2-inch board. So for example, our 2-inch board here is not really a 2-inch board. It is referred to as 8/4. So 8/4 inch board. This is 8/4 thick. Our 1-inch board is a 4/4 board. A 3/4 board is just 3/4 because, hey, why not? But you'll get used to after a while, when they ask you what thickness you want your wood, you generally tell them in 1/4 inch increments. So you'll tell them 3/4, 4/4, 6/4 boards are 1.5 inches, 8/4 boards are 2 inch thick. You're probably not going to machine too much that's thicker than that, but they do occasionally have it available. One other thing to keep in mind is you're occasionally going to see something called side surfaced. Now what this means is a lot of times the lumber that you're going to see is like this. It's a raw lumber. It came off, the bandsaw or what have you, and has not been smoothed out at all. And depending on what type of wood you get, this is yellow heart. But depending on where you get the wood from, how much they process it, have they run it through and they milled it so that it's flat, you may have to do a little bit of post-processing with these kinds of things. The easiest thing to do on something like this is to take your largest mill and just do a very, very shallow pocket, and that'll smooth all of this stuff out, and you can get things nice and even. But be sure when you're looking at woods and you're ordering things online, make sure that they're actually planing this surface on both sides. It's usually easier. The edges can be a little raw, and those are usually fine for your purposes. You may need to smooth one just to make sure that you've got things, straight on your wasteboard here. So those are a couple of the things to keep in mind when you're purchasing wood from a genuine wood yard. But let's talk a little bit about the place I actually go to get a lot of this really pretty wood. So in answer to the question of where do I get my wood, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, or at least a little south of Atlanta, and I go down to a place called the Woodyard, which is located in the thriving metropolis of Concord, Georgia. This is actually about an hour south of me, and you'll actually know when you're getting close by because your GPS will say, I have absolutely no idea where we are, and I'm just guessing at this point. So when you make it here, I'll post links down for the address down in the thingy, whatever we call it these days. So I'll post links and the address down below. The two proprietors are Nick and Rick, I kid you not, and they are really, really good guys. Very helpful, very knowledgeable about wood, and all around wood nerds. They love it. They really enjoy what they do, and they're good at it. A couple of favorite things that I have from there, they've got a lot of offcuts, smaller pieces maybe that, aren't of any use to, say, cabinet makers and stuff, but to people doing projects like us, they're great, and they're inexpensive, and always a good way to find small wood for boxes. Additionally, there is a section called the Turner's Corner, which I spend a lot of time in. It's mostly wood designed for wood turners, so it's smaller pieces of wood, individually priced. This is a great way to try, some small projects and see how you like yellow heart or purple heart or, chalk to vita or maple or whatever. Good place to do little testing here and there. They also do a bit of business on eBay. They're listed as the Woodyard GA, and I'll post that down in below. And you can order things directly from them. As you might expect, shipping on wood can be a bit of a nightmare, but they still have some very good prices, and they're glad to answer questions. Their website is thewoodyard.com, and I'll also post that down below as well. But these are the people that I deal with on a daily basis, and if you can't make it down to Concord, Georgia, I really, really strongly advise doing some looking around in your own area and find out what's available, because I think you might be surprised. Check with cabinet makers. They're going to know good sources for local hardwood. Definitely Google hardwood near me. Hopefully nothing too terrible will come up on that. But check things out and see what's available in your neck of the woods. You'll know you found the right place when it's like one guy running the operation and it's a hole in the wall somewhere. That's when you found a real lumber yard. Not a Home Depot, not a Lowe's, but a real, genuine lumber yard. If you have any other questions, feel free to put them down in the comments, and I'll see if I can answer them. Thanks.